BHP relented and hired the 4 tugs belonging to rival company Newcastle Port's towage services to bring the ore-laden Iron Spencer into port late this afternoon. Having it waited anchor off Nobbies for more than a week has cost the company hundreds of thousands of dollars. The dispute centres on a requirement to have 4 tugs assist large vessels like the Spencer through the channel. BHP has only 3, even though the company has a licence from the Hunter Ports Authority for a tug operation. BHP's rival, Newcastle Port's towage service, has 4 tugboats and refuses to hire out any less than that unless the safety or reputation of the port is at stake. Planned trials of 3-tug large ship operation have failed to materialise, and the 2 protagonists in the matter were not making any comment today.
The recent opposition and controversy surrounding coastal developments, including Pinny Beach and Fern Bay to name 2, is evidence enough for Bob Horn of community concern.
For too long we have talked about controlling coastal development, but we haven't seen any fair dinkum results.
In response, he's prepared a 4-point notice of motion due to be debated when the House of Representatives sits in April. The motion opposes the rate of development and the lack of uniform policies for environmentally sensitive areas. It seeks help from the Federal Minister to safeguard Australia's coastal heritage and calls for a moratorium on the rezoning and subdivision of coastal land.
Obviously, we're not going to stop coastal development. What we need to do is make sure that the coastal development is the right sort of coastal development.
Mr Horn believes the recent rush from developers buying up coastal land without suitable zoning is a long-term investment with a huge environmental cost.
Once they get their rezoning through, that's a bonanza. It's a bonanza for them as far as profits are concerned. It's a disaster for us, for the residents of this area, because the environment has suddenly been degraded.
Melinda Smith, NBN News. The new Grovewood estate is located on Mount Hall Road, Raymond Terrace. A development application has been lodged by McDonald Jones Constructions for 56 residential lots, including 2 rural parcels.
It's the subdivision of small farm acreage, and we will be working in with the adjacent neighbour to incorporate future subdivision from his land as well.
The project is the 3rd residential subdivision by McDonald Jones in the past 2 years, and business is booming. With the average block costing around $48,500 and the central location, market experience has shown such affordable land represents an attractive opportunity for new home builders eager to take advantage of what's becoming a limited offer.
It's between existing residential parcels and there is a limit to the amount of this sort of development can be done. The land will run out one day.
The lots go on sale this Saturday.
Our projection would be that we would expect that probably 65 to 70% of stage 1 would be sold out over the weekend.
Meet Tonto. He's a survivor and proud of it. He's also proud of his, well, manlyhood, and there are those who want to keep it that way. 5 weeks ago, the wild pony was brought to the RSPCA after he was found in bushland near Newcastle with 2 steel-tipped arrowheads lodged in his shoulder and rump. The 12-year-old stallion has survived the ordeal, but it seems only to face another. It's time for Tonto to find a good home, but according to the rules, he can't leave before he's, well, taken care of in the gelding room. But his newfound guardian is appealing on compassionate grounds.
Any time you have an anaesthetic, there is a risk that you may not recover from that anaesthetic, or there may be some permanent damage, risk of infection. And this little horse has become near and dear to many of us now. So I really don't want to take that chance.
Allies of Tonto will be arguing in support of the RSPCA's policy of no unnecessary cosmetic surgery. Given his age and experience, they believe such an operation would fail to change his amorous nature. And with only precious weeks left before his fate is decided, Tonto can only dream of the perfect retirement home away from all the fuss.
An appropriately fenced, timber fenced, large acreage, with a house and people in residence who are prepared to check on him and monitor him on a day-to-day basis.
And with Tonto intact?
That's exactly where I would hope him to be, Tonto intact on that premise.
Diane Scott was working here at Nunny's Corner store. Her mother and father-in-law, who own the business, had gone out for a few hours. Just after 7, a man with a stocking pulled over his face entered the Bruce Street business.
He said, "Give me all the money you've got. Don't look at me face," and just pointed a knife at me.
Diane was on her own and quickly obeyed the man's instructions.
I just gave him the money that we had, and he said, "Give it to me all," and I said, "That's all we've got." He said, "Give us the gold too," so that's all I could do was give it to him.
The money, which was mostly coins, was placed in a calico bag. The man then fled into the street. Police have released a description of the offender. He was 18 to 19 years of age, 180 centimetres tall and of slim build. He had dark shoulder-length hair and was wearing a black vinyl jacket with blue jeans. Police also want to hear from anyone who may recognise this man. Last Thursday morning, he held up the Jesmond 7-Eleven service station on Blue Gum Road, threatening the attendant with a shortened firearm. His face was well disguised, but Wallsend police hope someone may be able to identify his clothing. It's believed he's aged around 19 with fair-coloured hair. He left the service station on a trail bike. The attack was particularly vicious, with the offender locking the young attendant in a back room while he rifled behind the counter. He escaped with a small amount of money.
That's a good girl.
While opposition leader Bob Carr visited the Hunter, 19 left-wing MPs held an urgent meeting in Sydney to try to resolve the pre-selection issue which is threatening ALP unity. It follows a gathering on the weekend in Newcastle where rank-and-file members voiced concern over a decision by party hierarchy to suspend pre-selection ballots in 2 Sydney seats. Not willing to let the right of which Mr Carr is a member take control, Left spokesman and Deputy Leader Andrew Shorgie announced the withdrawal of parliamentary levies to head office. He also called for an urgent meeting with Mr Carr.
There's not a threat in this to Bob Carr at all. What there is a clear message to the head office machine that this is a major difficulty, an attack on the democracy of the party.
Mr Carr, however, would not speculate on a possible solution.
I'd like to think we can get a sensible outcome, a suitable compromise that enables both sides to emerge from this dispute with a measure of face saved.
Somewhat escaping the lashing from his colleagues, Mr Carr was in Newcastle today, highlighting what he says is a crisis in services provided to youth in the Hunter. According to Mr Carr, a leaked report shows there are 32 children in the Hunter who are not receiving appropriate care. His call for more government funding follows the recent death of 14-year-old prostitute Melissa Lee Astle, whose body was found dumped at a wobber. Mr Carr pointed out the confusion which exists within community services since the Usher report 2 years ago, a fact backed up by those who deal with the Hunters young every day. Up until December, when a new stretch of the freeway was opened, traffic heading onto the Pacific Highway used roads winding through Cessnock Council's area. They included John Renshaw Drive and the Gap Road, in all 31 kilometres, which the RTA agreed to maintain. However, with traffic now significantly less, the RTA is asking Council to take back the road, but the city doesn't want to.
The RTA are living in the past. They used us, they abused us, they think that we're going to accept a lower standard of roads than everyone else in the Hunter. I've got news for them. We're no longer the meek little mouse that we were for decades. There's fire in our belly nowadays and we won't accept lower standard roads.
Cessnock Council doesn't have the capacity to maintain this road.
In a report to Council tonight, the RTA is offering $400,000 as upkeep on the roads. Not enough, say the Mayor and Councillor Fitzgibbon. 11 out of 16 categories identified by the RTA list the condition of the road as below standard. Council is likely to refuse control tonight until more money is spent by the RTA.
We would wonder why that $400,000 wasn't spent on the road in the first place, to bring it up to a standard, and I would suggest that $2 or $3 million needs to be spent, not $400,000.
Paul Robinson from Blacksmiths Beach and Patrick Lennon from Maitland are getting their first taste of ambulance work. They are among 20 trainees or probationary officers who have just completed an induction course in Sydney.
So it's a little bit daunting at first for the probationers, but they'll pick it up along the way, and they're going quite well. They seem to be both quite sensible young blokes, and I think they'll come a long way.
24-year-old Patrick was a fitter and machinist at BHP before joining the Ambos to fulfil a lifelong ambition. Both he and Paul, who worked as a boilermaker and bus driver, will be sent to the busy Raymond Terrace ambulance station until November the 14th.
They're going to be posted up at Raymond Terrace initially, because of the high workload area up there, and at this time it's just a single officer station, and we're hoping to expand that, so we're getting more staff in to do that, and they'll complement the station there quite well.
Once they finish their practical course, they will undergo a further 5 weeks of training in Sydney before they become fully qualified Level 2 ambulance officers.
Minister for Energy Gary West launched the vehicle, which has taken 3 years and millions of dollars to produce. Myuna Colliery on the western side of Lake Macquarie has trialled a prototype for the last 12 months and has just received the first 2 production vehicles, each worth about $300,000. That may sound a lot, but the new vehicle is safer, more efficient and faster, making it a sound investment.
The payback period in additional coal that has been mined will pay for it within 12 months.
The underground personnel vehicle will cut the time miners spend travelling underground by 2/3, with the longest trip of 90 minutes reduced to about half an hour. This saves fuel and also increases the time miners work by reducing the time they waste in transit. But the most important advancement is in safety. The 10 independently suspended wheels glide over the roughest of surfaces, saving the miners' backs and the road, providing a much more comfortable trip than their rough ride predecessors. An advancement that obviously impressed Minister West, who hitched a ride on the mining equivalent to a ministerial car. He was even more impressed by the vehicle's potential to be exported, with 20 vehicles being produced a year.
To be able to say we're there now, up with and ahead of world technology, I think is a great credit to ANI and to Power Coal.
We've already had some interest expressed from the United States of America and from Europe, where there are far bigger coal mines than there are here in Australia.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
I'll stay over here. A quick interview downstairs after we get some shots up here.
Great, but Tim Smythe's coming over and you guys will be interviewing him.
Right.
You know him, don't you?
No, no.
He's the...
The police vigil over holiday traffic continued into the night. More than 5,000 motorists have been breath tested from the Central Coast to the Upper Hunter. About 20 people have been charged for driving with high blood alcohol levels, while more than 1,000 have been booked for speeding. 20 crashes have been reported with a dozen people injured. Traffic today was flowing steadily with no reported delays.
We're very impressed with the way the motoring public have conducted themselves so far. They've been very responsible.
Driver reviver stops are enjoying a temporary respite before holidaymakers head home. Volunteers served thousands of snacks and drinks.
Really busy. We have been flat strapped.
We've had one trip where my husband, almost fell asleep at the wheel, so now we make a point of looking for these driver revivers.
Bear in mind that you're not alone in your journey home. There are many thousands of other people with the same problems that you've got, and to just sit tight and you'll eventually arrive safe and sound.
Against South West, Newcastle kept up a frantic pace, making the most of quick plays. Even when they didn't have the ball, they pressured South West until they forced a mistake. Everything Newcastle tried just seemed to fall into place and become points. At one stage, Newcastle led 34-0, but instead of continuing the scoring spree, they dropped their concentration and South West seized their chance to score. Newcastle still won easily, but late this afternoon lost to Illawarra and are now out of Division 1.
Imagine how many Leamington drives would go into something like this. We thought of that and we thought, well, yes, we've done Leamington drives, but this is a way to go.
The sounds of screams just before 7 o'clock this morning alerted a neighbour of the Fullerton Street house who was able to capture the force of the blaze on video.
Window smashing, people screaming, running around the streets trying to hose it down, but running around in their bathrobes and their pyjamas. There was nothing they could do. It just went up so quick. The house is just an old weatherboard place. It was like kindling, it just went straight up.
With flames jumping either side of the two-storey weatherboard dwelling, nearby properties were also threatened.
I grabbed my children and we ran out in the street, and then flames just went up and I heard screams coming from next door.
The place was really ablaze. There was flames leaping out everywhere through the roof up against the side of the house here.
3 fire units battled to contain the blaze.
The top floor had collapsed onto the ground floor, making it almost impossible to gain entry.
With the fire extinguished, around 20 officers began sifting through the ashes, their worst fears confirmed.
There is a fatality in the place at this stage. The number, at this stage we don't know how many.
At first, police were unsure how many occupants were inside. Neighbours report at least 5 young people had visited the house in the early hours of this morning. 20-year-old Chad Morgan managed to escape the inferno.
And a man from across the road raced across and he grabbed the young fella that had come through the window and dragged him across the street, and he was on fire and there was cuts all over him.
Tonight he's in a stable condition in John Hunter Hospital. Still unsure of the cause, police believe burning candles may have been involved. Investigations are continuing. Melinda Smith, NBN News. With Easter Sunday marking the 4th day of the operation, police report traffic in the Hunter as heavy but flowing. In the Upper Hunter, 16 crashes have been recorded but no serious injuries. With the crackdown on speed and drink driving, thousands of motorists have been breath tested. On the Central Coast, a 17-year-old provisional driver was fined for clocking speeds of 148 kilometres an hour in a 60 zone, while a 22-year-old Gosford man was charged with speed and drink driving, recording a blood alcohol level of 0.14. At Raymond Terrace early this morning, a motorist was charged with travelling over 100 kilometres an hour in a 60 zone without headlights and exceeding the mid-range alcohol limit. Operation Torres winds up at midnight tomorrow night. Police expect traffic to reach its peak late Monday as holidaymakers begin heading home. They're advising all motorists to use common sense and patience and, when in need, stop and revive the driver. They gathered from all corners, celebrating the death and resurrection of their Saviour. Following Christ's crucifixion on the cross, his resurrection serves as a reminder to Christians of the sacrifice made to gain salvation for all believers. Special services were held at various churches across the region, worshippers taking time to reflect and renew their faith. Easter Sunday is a time of rejoicing, sacred hymns celebrating the joy shared by millions around the world.
We're looking at 600 people, about 350 cars coming from all over Australia.
For 25 years, devotees of the MG Annual National Meeting have gathered to discuss all matters mechanical and pitch motor against motor. Today's Motorcana event testing the best, including top female contender South Australia's Bev Waters.
It's a test of manoeuvrability for the MGs, their way they can accelerate, brake, get around the poles. It's not easy, but they're trying hard.
26 classes have been registered, from the 1933 MG Magna, one of the earliest models, to the latest, a new MGR V8, a dream buy at around $80,000.
It's a 3.9 litre V8. It has 150 kilowatts and it's quite quick. It's leather trim, there's belled walnut, so there's a lot of differences from the old MG.
So many shapes, sizes and so many different reasons why MG owners wouldn't drive any other car.
My wife and I then got a 1948 model and we did our courting in it, and boy, we're still married, so perhaps that's why I like an MG.
It's a great car, and if I didn't love it, he might divorce me.
I think it's the people at the tracks that makes them so good, really, to be quite honest with you.
Hiscock in the black hat and dark shorts was never going to lose the match. Rain posed more of a problem to him than his opponent, Ken Johnston from Brisbane. It first stopped play midway through the first set. When the match resumed, Hiscock shot to a 6-1 victory in the first set. The skies opened up again and the final was stopped for the second time. The delays didn't faze Hiscock. He got back onto the court and won the second set 6-2 and the match. Jodie Lynn of Lismore took out the Women's Open final against Danielle Thomas of Muswellbrook. The Northern Rivers Classic again proved a popular tournament, attracting 254 players from Brisbane to Sydney. Organisers say it is becoming renowned as a family event, as it holds competition in divisions from under under-12s to Opens. Next year, the 70th Classic will be held. Jason Neuenhoff, NBN News.
The body of 85-year-old Margaret Howlett was found in her Denali Street house on Saturday night. She'd been bashed around the head with a heavy blunt object and her bedroom set alight. The vicious attack has shocked the Hunter Valley community, which is still reeling from the death of 49-year-old Janice Gardner. Mrs Gardner's body was found a year ago in Rose Point Park. A 20-year-old man from Broke is serving time for her murder.
Would have not thought it ever happened to Singleton until 12 months ago when we had, this is the second one in 12 months. It's frightening. Frightening, and apparently they have no clues at the moment. You know, it makes it more frightening, doesn't it?
The people that have rang me and spoken to me about it, that 2 crimes in 12 months never happened in Singleton before, and the question is, what's going on? What's happening to our town in the middle of the Hunter Valley? Why is this happening? And it's a feeling that's permeating through the community at the present time.
Aware of the community's concern, police have launched an intensive investigation to try to catch Mrs Howlett's killer or killers. While the public has supplied vital information, police are still unsure exactly what happened here between the hours of 8:30 and 10:30 Saturday night. Police have set up a caravan in the main street of the town to encourage anyone with information to come forward. A number of cars would have travelled over the Denali Bridge and past Mrs Howlett's house the night she died.
It's still used very much as a bypass by the local people, the bridge between Singleton and then going up to Singleton Heights and the caravan park and any of those areas. So we do believe that it's used quite frequently and that many people would have passed that house between those hours.
A search of properties and the Hunter River for the instrument used to kill Mrs Howlett has proved fruitless. Police don't believe robbery was involved. Sexual assault may have been a motive. For her family of 7 children and 19 grandchildren, it's been a horrific few days trying to understand why someone brutally attacked their beloved mother and grandmother. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
The wave of traffic that swept through Hunter, Central and Mid-North Coast roads at the beginning of the Easter break started pouring back late yesterday and into the evening. Police concentrated all available cars and personnel on seeing the holiday traffic safely through bottleneck areas and maintained an around-the-clock high profile.
It creates a memory effect because if they see one police car after another, then the expectation is that they're out there, and if I do the wrong thing, there's a good likelihood that I'll be caught.
More than 10,000 motorists were breath tested throughout the northern region during Operation Torres. Less than 100 were charged for driving with high blood alcohol levels, but 1,500 speeding tickets were issued. A 42-year-old Sydney man was arrested on the Central Coast on Sunday for speeding and driving with a .250 blood alcohol level, only to be booked again later in the day for driving with a high blood alcohol level.
Obviously there are some who, despite all the education and all the media campaigns and all the enforcement, still fail to take the warnings.
Police believe their high-profile presence and responsible driver attitudes are pegging back the death toll. This is the 3rd fatality-free Easter for the Maitland Patrol. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
The property will be the site of the Ngurrabal Manufacturing and Training Centre. Some of the buildings are already under construction, and the Aborigines who run the centre can lay claim to all the work done so far. It's the type of positive program the Shadow Minister for Aboriginal Affairs, Col Markham, likes to see.
This project here at the Willows is an example of what can be achieved if you've got people prepared to put the effort in. Young Aboriginal people out here learning skills. And I can see nothing but good coming out of that.
There is also a big plan for the future. By the end of the year, construction will begin on a cultural centre, and the ultimate plan is to open the property up as a tourist attraction.
Our aim is to get the culture centre going, working full on with the walks and the guides, some of the more cabins hidden in the back for different age groups, for camping 2 nights, 3 nights or whatever.
Once complete, the centre will be set against a backdrop of more than 1,500 hectares, offering 2,000 native tree species, numerous native animals including a koala colony and an adjacent gorge area. Mr Markham is on a 3-day tour of northern New South Wales. Yesterday he visited Walgett and tomorrow he'll travel to Tenterfield. He and his caucus committee are looking at all aspects of Aboriginal life in the country. While acknowledging there are still major social problems in some areas, he says those issues tend to get more press coverage than positive stories.
I think that what we've got to be able to do is give these people some hope for the future by at least coming out and seeing what they're doing and supporting what they're doing.